My parents gave my twin brother a BMW as a graduation present, while they gave me an ultimatum: pay our debt or move out. So I cut off all contact and left. Now they're losing it, seeing me successful while they struggle to pay their bills. I'm Jake, 29M. And I have a twin brother, Matt. Growing up, we were always treated differently. Matt was the golden child, athletic, popular, the life of the party, the kind of kid who'd walk into a room and immediately become the center of attention. Meanwhile, I was the quiet twin who preferred building computers and reading science fiction. I've always been more of an introvert, so I never really minded the difference in how we were treated. At least that's what I told myself. Don't get me wrong, I never hated Matt. He's my twin and we had our moments of brotherhood. But even from an early age it was painfully obvious who my parents' favorite was. Matt would get the latest PlayStation for Christmas, while I'd get educational books. He'd get to have these elaborate birthday parties with all his friends, while mine were always combined with his, which really just meant it was his party that I also happened to be at. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Phoenix, nothing fancy, but comfortable enough. Dad worked as a district manager for a retail chain and Mom was an administrative assistant at a local dentist's office. We weren't rich by any means, but we never went hungry either. I started getting into web design when I was around 16. I taught myself HTML, CSS and eventually JavaScript by watching YouTube tutorials on this ancient Dell laptop I had rescued from a neighbor's trash, legit. They were throwing it out and I asked if I could have it. While Matt was out playing football and going to parties, I was building websites for small local businesses, $200 here, $300 there. It wasn't much, but I saved every penny. By the time we graduated high school I had almost $15,000 saved up, not a fortune, but definitely more than most 18-year-olds. Matt and I both got into state university, him on a partial athletic scholarship, not full ride, despite what my parents always bragged to the neighbors and me on academic merit. College was interesting. Matt joined a fraternity, of course, and lived the stereotypical college experience, parties, social events, the works. I got a tiny studio apartment off campus that was basically a shoebox with a bathroom. It had this quirky slanted floor that made my desk chair roll to one side if I didn't put a book under one of the wheels, the shower would randomly go ice cold in the middle of use and the neighbors fought like cats and dogs at 3 a.m. regularly. But it was mine, you know. I continued freelancing throughout college, building up a decent client base. By junior year I was making enough to cover my rent and expenses without touching my savings. I even adopted this ornery orange tabby cat named Cheeto, who'd wake me up by sitting on my face if his food bowl was empty. That little troublemaker was the best companion I could ask for during those years. Matt, meanwhile, was burning through his money faster than he was earning it. He got a part-time job at the campus bookstore, but most of that went to social activities and fraternity dues. My parents would constantly bail him out when he needed money for books or rent. They never asked me for help, which was fine by me. I was focused on building my future fast forward to graduation day. We both managed to graduate on time, though I'll admit I helped Matt with more than a few papers over those 4 years. I finished with a degree in computer science and he got his business administration degree. My parents threw this huge graduation party for us, well, mostly for Matt, since most of the guests were his friends and our extended family, who always preferred his outgoing personality to my quieter demeanor. The day after graduation is when everything went to hell. We were all sitting in the living room of my parents' house. I was planning to head back to my apartment later the day to start working on some new projects. My mom had made this big breakfast with pancakes and bacon, Matt's favorites, of course. Then my dad disappeared into the garage and came back with a small box wrapped in shiny blue paper. He handed it to Matt with this huge smile on his face. "Son, we're so proud of you, you've worked so hard, and we wanted to give you something special to start your new life." Matt tore into that paper like a kid on Christmas morning. Inside was a set of car keys with the BMW logo. You guys should have seen his face. He literally jumped up and down, screaming like he just won the lottery. My dad let him outside and there it was, a brand new black BMW 3 Series with a giant red bow on top. Not some used car, a brand new BMW. I was genuinely happy for him at that moment. Matt had always been into cars and seeing him so excited made me smile. I figured my parents had splurged on him, which wasn't surprising given their history of favoritism. I wasn't expecting anything as extravagant as a car. That's not really my style anyway. Maybe a new laptop or even just a nice watch would have been cool. After Matt calmed down, my mom turned to me with this weird smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She handed me an envelope with my name written on it in her neat handwriting. I remember feeling this sinking feeling in my stomach as I opened it. Inside wasn't a gift card or a check, or even a heartfelt letter. It was a bill, a detailed list of expenses, portion of household utilities during high school, $3,200. Food during your last 2 years of high school, $2,800. Contribution to family car insurance, $1,500. It went on, adding up to almost $24,000. I stared at the paper in disbelief. What is this? I finally managed to ask. My mom's smile widened. It's only fair, Jake, you've been working for years. You've saved up so much money. It's time for you to help the family. My dad nodded in agreement. Matt hasn't saved anything yet. He'll need help getting started in life. But you're responsible. You have money. This is just a small way to contribute. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted nightmare. They weren't giving me a graduation gift, they were handing me their debt. They expected me to pay for them while rewarding Matt with a luxury car, and they actually thought this was fair. So you want me to pay you $24,000? I asked, still trying to understand. Well, not all at once. My mom said, as if that made it better. You can pay in installments, but we do need the first $5,000 by the end of the month. My dad cleared his throat and, Jake, this isn't optional. You're an adult now, and as long as you're living under our roof, you need to contribute. If you can't help the family financially, well then you'll need to find somewhere else to live. My mom nodded. We've supported you for 22 years. Now it's your turn to support the family. That's what responsible adults do. And if I don't, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My dad's face hardened. Then you're not the son we raised you to be. We'll have no choice but to ask you to leave and, well, reconsider your place in this family. I looked at Matt, expecting, I don't know, maybe a little guilt, or perhaps a hey, this isn't right. But he just shrugged and said, come on, man, you always say you don't care about money. That was when I made my decision. I took a deep breath, folded the paper neatly and slid it back into the envelope. Thank you for this, I said evenly. It's a real eye-opener. My mom beamed. I knew you'd understand. I smiled back, went upstairs to the guest room where I'd been staying, packed my bags, grabbed Cheeto and left. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just walked out. They didn't try to stop me. I don't think they fully realized what I was doing. They probably thought I was just going for a drive to process the agreement they presented me with. Not yet, anyway, but that would change soon enough. I drove back to my apartment in silence, trying to process what had just happened. Cheeto me out occasionally from his carrier, probably sensing my distress. When I got home I made myself some strong tea and tried to make sense of it all. 2 weeks later I got the first desperate call. I ignored it. Then the second. By the third. My voicemail was full of messages from my parents, my brother, even my aunt. At first they were casual, hey, Jake, we just wanted to check in, call us back. Then they became more urgent. Jake, why aren't you answering? We need to talk. And finally came the desperation. Please, Jake, we didn't mean it like that, just call us back. But I didn't. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of pretending nothing had happened. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. The first week after I left, I stayed in my apartment working more than usual to distract myself. Cheeto was my only companion, sitting on my desk and occasionally swatting at my mouse cursor as I worked. I even started therapy via one of those online services, best decision I ever made. Honestly, by the second week, Matt started calling. At first it was all bravado, dude, stop being dramatic, just come back. Already. I blocked his number. Then my mom switched tactics, Jake, sweetheart, we're struggling. You know, we've always supported you. Can't you just help us out a little? That was rich coming from the woman who had smiled while handing me a bill instead of congratulations. Then the real panic set in. One evening, while checking my emails, I saw a message from my dad with the subject, please read this. I hesitated, but curiosity got the best of me. Jake, we're in trouble. We took out some loans we can't pay back and thought we could handle it, but things are getting worse. Matt doesn't have the means to help us, and you've always been so independent and responsible. We misjudged the situation and for that I'm sorry, but we need you. Please at least call us back. I stared at the email for a long time. It was the first time they had even come close to admitting they were wrong, but still it wasn't a real apology. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry because I had left and now their perfect golden child wasn't enough to fix their problems. For years I had watched my parents favor Matt, give him everything, excuse his mistakes, while expecting me to be the responsible one. And now, when their choices finally caught up to them, who did? They turned to me because Matt, the son they had prioritized for years, wasn't capable of helping them, and when I didn't comply with their ultimatum to pay up or get out, they were suddenly desperate to have me back. I closed the email without responding. A few days later, I got the call that changed everything. It was my Aunt Lisa. For the first time, I hesitated before ignoring it. I stared at my phone for a moment before deciding to pick up. I didn't know what to expect from her. She wasn't as involved in the drama, but she had always been somewhat of a peacemaker between me and my parents, Jake. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Can we talk for a minute?" I sighed. "About what?" "About your parents. They're worried about you." "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone level, "but I think they're a little more worried about themselves right now." There was a long pause. Then she said, "Please don't be like this. They made a mistake. They thought you would understand. They didn't mean for things to go this way." I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't backing down, not now, not after everything that had happened. Taking a deep breath, I asked the question that had been swirling in my mind for days, "Aunt Lisa, tell me something. Why did they buy Matt a car if they were struggling, if they were in debt? How is that even possible? How could they think that was okay?" There was another long pause. Then finally she spoke, but her voice was shaky. "I don't know, Jake. They always wanted to give Matt the best and thought it would be a good way to celebrate his graduation. They never imagined you would leave over it." I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't change anything. My parents had always put Matt first, given him whatever he wanted. And me, what did I get for graduating? A bill. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. She was quiet for a moment, not knowing how to respond. "They didn't know how to show you they were proud of you, Jake. They thought you would understand because you've always been responsible. But they were wrong and they regret it." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "It's not about that. It's about respect. It's about how they've treated me all these years, how they've always put Matt on a pedestal and expected me to take care of everything else." I could feel anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. "They didn't give me a car. They didn't give me an opportunity, not even a proper thank you for everything I've done. Instead, they gave me their problems and now they want me to fix them." Aunt Lisa was silent for a long time. "Jake, I think they're finally realizing they've messed up. They just don't know how to fix it. Please come home, let them make it up to you." I wasn't sure if I could. The emotional toll was too heavy, but something inside softened just a little. "Maybe," I said. "But they have to show me they're serious. This can't just be another excuse. If they really want to fix things, they need to prove it." Aunt Lisa sighed in relief. "Thank you, Jake. I know this isn't easy." Before I could respond, she added, "But there's something you should know. What Matt called me to. He's been asking if you'll come back. He's not as indifferent as you think." I frowned. "Really, he's actually concerned?" "Yes," she said quietly. "But it's more than that. He's starting to see the bigger picture. He's starting to realize just how much you've done for the family and how much he's taken for granted." I didn't know what to think. Matt, the golden boy, realizing his actions. It sounded too good to be true, but maybe, just maybe, things could change. I still didn't know if I was ready to go back, but something told me this story wasn't over yet, and in our next conversation I would hear something that would finally push me to make a choice. The days passed as I stayed in my apartment sorting through my thoughts, still refusing to call back. But then something unexpected happened. It was Thursday evening when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. "Jake, it was Matt." "Yeah," I replied coolly. His voice shook and there was a long pause before he spoke again. "Jake, I'm sorry, but things got worse." My heart sank, but part of me couldn't help but feel vindicated. "What happened?" Matt hesitated, then finally admitted Mom and Dad. "They didn't listen. I tried talking to them, but they're stubborn. They kept insisting they'd manage." But now he took a deep breath before saying the words that would change everything. "They had to sell the car." My chest tightened, but part of me felt satisfied. "They sold the car." I repeated coolly, "Yeah." Matt's voice cracked. "They had no choice. The bills piled up and we couldn't keep up with payments anymore. They sold it to cover some of their debt. It's gone." I was silent. I don't know what to say, man. I listened to the heavy silence after Matt spoke those words. They sold the car, the same car my parents bought for him while they handed me a bill, the car that symbolized everything. I had always known that Matt was the priority and I was just the backup, the one they could count on to fix their problems and then be forgotten when they didn't need me. I could have felt sorry for them, I could have felt guilty, but I didn't. Instead, I felt a cold certainty settle in my chest. This was just the beginning of their downfall, and my voice came out harsher than I expected. Matt was silent for a few seconds. I could almost picture his face, confused, like he had expected me to react differently. They're in bad shape, man. I don't know what to do. They're desperate. I tried talking to them, but they won't listen. They still think everything will somehow fix itself, but it won't. Jake, everything is falling apart. He sounded different, no longer the arrogance of a brother who always knew he would get everything handed to him. Now his voice was filled with fear, with helplessness. Not my problem, Matt. I could hear his breathing on the other end, unsteady. Don't say that. There are parents. I laughed, a dry, humorless laugh. Oh, now there are parents. When I was just the one expected to clean up their mess, you didn't say that. But now that they can't spoil you anymore, suddenly there are parents. I know I messed up. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. You only realize that because they can't take care of you anymore. Silence again. He knew I was right. I wanted to hang up to end the conversation there, but a part of me wanted to hear how bad things had gotten. Tell me, Matt, what else happened? He hesitated, but then he let it all out. Bills are overdue, the mortgage too. They took out more loans, trying to keep everything going. Now the banks are calling non-stop and they don't know what to do. He took a breath. Yesterday, Dad collapsed. I've never seen him like that. He didn't talk to anyone all day, he just sat in the living room staring at the wall. My heart clenched for a second, but I didn't let it show. They have to deal with it, Matt. I already did my part for years. Now it's their turn. He let out a long sigh. Jake, I know you're angry, but if this keeps going, they'll lose everything. Maybe that's what they deserve. The coldness in my voice shocked him. But it was the truth. My parents had always acted as if they were untouchable, as if their decisions had no real consequences, because, in the end, I was always there to catch them, but not anymore. And now they were falling. Are you really not going to do anything? Matt asked, disbelief heavy in his voice. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. They have you. You were always the chosen one, the favorite. Now it's your turn to handle this. I hung up before he could respond. The next few days, the calls increased. My father called, my mother left crying voicemails. Matt kept trying. I didn't answer. Then came the unexpected visit. It was an ordinary afternoon when I heard loud knocking on the door of my apartment. I got up already feeling something bad was coming. When I opened the door, my Aunt Lisa stood there, a serious expression on her face. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't want to, but something about the way she looked at me made me step aside and let her in. Cheeto immediately ran to her, rubbing against her legs. The little traitor always loved her. She walked in, looked around and sighed, they're in bad shape, Jake, really bad. I crossed my arms. I've heard that before. This time it's serious. Your dad collapsed yesterday. He passed out, my breath caught for a second but I kept my face blank and he's in the hospital. My chest tightened but my expression didn't change. That's his own fault, Jake. They know they messed up. They're paying for it, but what does it cost you to at least see them? I'm not their bank, Aunt Lisa. I'm not their magic solution. I know that, but you're still their son. That hurt, not because I felt like I owed them anything, but because for a second it reminded me that, despite everything, a part of me still cared. But caring didn't change anything. I looked at her and shook my head. If they want me to forgive them, they need to do more than cry and beg. They need to prove they've changed, because I'm not that kid anymore. I'm not the one who accepts being pushed aside while Matt is treated like a king. She studied me for a moment before sighing. Then, what do you want, Jake? I stared out the window thinking, what did I want? Justice, revenge, just the satisfaction of knowing they finally saw they couldn't use me anymore. I didn't know yet, but one thing was certain, I wasn't running back to save anyone. If they wanted to fix something, they'd have to do it without dragging me into it again. She looked at me a little longer then stood up. So it's decided, you're not going to help. No, not until they show me that they don't just see me as their safety net. She nodded slowly and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she gave me one last look. I just hope they realize it in time, before it's too late. Then she was gone. I stood there feeling like this wasn't over, because if I knew my parents, I knew one thing for sure, they wouldn't give up that easily. The question was, what would they do now that they couldn't rely on me anymore? The weeks passed and I moved on with my life. I focused on my work, invested every penny wisely, and little by little I built something solid. I even started a small web development agency with 2 other friends I met at a coding meetup. We rented this tiny office space downtown that had this weird mural of dancing skeletons on one wall. Previous tenant was an eccentric artist, I guess. Our conference room was literally just a fold-out table we'd set up when clients came by, but it worked for us. It wasn't easy at first, but the peace of knowing I had total control over my own future was something no amount of money could buy. Cheeto was joined by a second cat, a one-eyed rescue named Pirate, who'd been abused by his previous owners. The 2 of them would chase each other around my apartment at 3 a.m. like they were possessed. Meanwhile, my family kept sinking deeper and deeper. I knew this because, even though I never answered their calls, the messages kept coming. At first they were desperate, "Please, Jake, please, just alone, just until we get back on our feet." Then came the emotional manipulation, "Are you really going to abandon us like this? We're your family." And when that didn't work, the insults followed, "You're selfish. You've always been cold and ungrateful." I didn't fall for any of their tactics. It didn't surprise me. The first person to get ahead in a struggling family has always turned into everyone else's savior, as if the fact that I had built something on my own meant I was now morally obligated to carry everyone else. But I didn't accept that role. I worked alone. No one gave me a hand. When I was saving every penny, when I worked tirelessly to build something for myself, no one helped me. When I left home with nothing, with no idea what I would do next. But now that I was stable, suddenly I was the villain for not wanting to support them. The irony was almost comical. My Aunt Lisa was the last one to try to change my mind. She called me on a Sunday night after months without contact. I didn't answer, but then she sent me a long message. "Jake, I know you're hurt, but your family is suffering. Your parents have lost almost everything. Matt is trying to hold things together, but he doesn't have the same resources you do. Are you really going to let them fall like this? They have always been your family, no matter what happened. You could make a difference, but you're choosing to turn your back on them. Can you live with that?" I read the message and stared at the screen for a long time. My response was short, "Lisa, I am not financially responsible for anyone but myself. No one helped me when I needed it. I have no obligation to fix other people's problems now. I hope they understand that someday." I hit send and muted all notifications. After that, the break was final. My family completely excluded me. The messages stopped, the calls disappeared, and the few relatives who once pretended to care about me now acted like I didn't exist. I was treated as a traitor, a selfish person who abandoned his family in their worst moment. If an outsider heard their version of the story, they might think I was a terrible person. But no one from the outside saw the years of neglect, of indifference, the years where I was only a resource while Matt was the beloved son. The truth was deep down. My family never saw me as one of them. I was just an investment, and when that investment didn't give them the expected return, they decided I was worthless. The most ironic part of all this, they still believed they were right because, in their minds, I had money, I had made it, so I had to help. That's how many families work. The first one to break the cycle of poverty is always expected to be the savior. As if simply achieving something meant they were now obligated to share it and take care of everyone else. But no one thinks about the other side. No one thinks about the effort, the sacrifices, the years of struggle it takes to build something alone, and, most importantly, no one thinks about whether that person even wants to carry that burden. I didn't. I chose to live my life without giving into the emotional manipulation of people who only saw me as a walking ATM, and in the end I realized something liberating. I never needed them, and that's exactly why I succeeded. It's been almost 2 years now since I walked out of my parents' house. My business has grown. We now have a proper office with 6 employees and clients across the country. I bought a small but nice house in a quiet neighborhood with an actual yard for the cats to watch birds from the windows. I even started dating again, met a great woman named Emma, who runs her own bakery downtown. She's smart, independent, and actually appreciates the work I've put into building my life. Plus, she brings home pastries when she has leftovers at the shop, so that's a definite bonus. Last month I ran into Matt at the grocery store. It was the first time I'd seen any of my family. Since I left he looked different, tired. The confidence that had always radiated from him was gone. He was wearing worn jeans and a faded t-shirt, a far cry from the designer clothes he used to sport. We made awkward eye contact across the produce section. For a moment I thought about turning around and walking away, but something made me stay. Hey, he said, approaching me cautiously. Hi, I replied, not knowing what else to say. There was a painfully long silence before he spoke again. You look good. Business must be going well. I nodded. It is. How are things? He let out a long sigh. Mom and Dad lost the house. They're living in a small apartment now. Dad's health hasn't been great, but he's working part-time at a hardware store. Mom's waitressing. I absorbed this information without reaction. And you, I'm managing, got a job in sales. It's not much, but it pays the bills. He hesitated. I share an apartment with a couple guys from work. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. I nodded again. Another awkward silence followed. Jake, I get it now. Matt finally said, I understand why you left. What they did, what I did, it wasn't fair. None of it was part of me wanted to say too little, too late, but I held back. It took you long enough. He wins. Yeah, well, sometimes the lesson has to hurt before it sticks. I couldn't argue with that. They ask about you sometimes, he added hesitantly. Mom still has a picture of us from graduation on her nightstand. I didn't know what to do with that information. Part of me still cared about them. Of course they were my parents. But another part, the part that remembered the bill, the BMW, the years of favoritism, that part was still too raw, too angry. I should go, I said, gesturing to my half-filled cart. Emma's waiting for me. Emma, my girlfriend. A small smile crossed his face. That's good. I'm glad you're happy, Jake. You deserve it. I nodded. Take care of yourself, Matt. As I turned to leave, he called after me, Jake, do you think maybe someday? I paused. I don't know, Matt, I really don't, and that was the truth. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive them. But for the first time since I walked out, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I didn't need to hate them either. So that's where I am now, read it, still building my life one day at a time, still figuring out what family means to me. Emma knows the whole story and she supports whatever decision I make. About my parents, sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing. Was I too harsh? Should I have helped them when they needed it? But then I remember the look on their faces when they handed me that bill, expecting me to just accept it, because that's what family does, and I know I made the right choice. I refuse to be anyone's ATM, not even my parents'. What do you guys think? Has anyone else had to make a clean break from family over money issues? How did you handle the guilt? Because, even though I know I did what was right for me, there's still that voice in the back of my head sometimes. Doctor, my parents always favored my twin brother, giving him a new BMW for graduation, while handing me a bill for $24,000 and threatening to kick me out and disown me if I didn't pay. I walked out, cut contact and built a successful life without them. They lost everything when they couldn't use me as their financial safety net anymore. 2 years later, I'm still trying to decide if I can ever have a relationship with them again. Edit, wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all your comments and support. To answer some common questions, 1, yes, they literally handed me an itemized bill on my graduation day. No, I'm not exaggerating too. I don't actually hate my brother anymore. He was a product of their favoritism, just like I was 3. No, I haven't given them any money and don't plan to. 4. For those asking about my business, it's a full-service web development and digital marketing agency. We work primarily with small to medium businesses who need more than just a template website.
Good morning， 早安，妈妈们。借我你那个麦试一下。你们收到了这个 Oxford Dictionary Panel 啊 ，e-commerce 就是上次 Kobe Daddy 跟这个 e-commerce 配合，然后开卖的这个 e-commerce。就是 e-commerce 我自己呢也有买一套给我的孩子，然后呢我也买一套送给